Hey everybody, happy Halloween weekend. So we're going to talk about working with mixed media a little bit and how to start experimenting with mixed medias. And I'm going to walk you through an example of getting started and doing a little bit of groundwork. We're going to start with something kind of basic, so that will be watercolors and colored pencils. They kind of go together like cookies and ice cream, Halloween and horror movies, you know. But it's a good starting point if you're looking to dabble a little bit. And what good reason do we have to start playing around with mixed medias? Perhaps you're just looking to expand on what you're already doing and try some new things. And as we all know, play is so good for creativity. And if you're adding in some new things and trying different experiments with materials, it's the best kind of play if you're an artist. So this is all really good, exciting stuff. And we'll start small and we can build up over some other episodes and really just push ourselves to try new things. And I encourage you to do some experimenting and try combining mediums, even if you're gonna start safe, kind of like we're doing today, or just go to, off the rails. Go off the rails. You absolutely should. Try some fun new things. You don't know what it'll lead to. Could be garbage, could be fun, could be the most brilliant idea to take you on to the next year's work. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do if we're going to start playing with combining mediums is really get a feel for what happens when we combine them. Now, I'm going to be playing today. I have 3 different sets of colored pencils. These from Posca. This is a bigger set than my others, but I don't really care how many colors there are. It's just going to be about how do they react. I've got those and some Staedtler Aquarell watercolor pencils, specifically watercolor pencils, and Stabilo CarbOthello pencils as well. These are not specifically watercolor pencils, but they all behave differently. So what I'm going to do is create a reference sheet, labeling everything so that we can go back to this when we know we want to create something and see how it's going to work. Some definition for the 3 mediums we'll play with watercolors and water. Posca, Staedtler, and Stabilo. Okay, once we have a sheet set up, labeled to do our testing for each pencil, okay, I'm going to tell you this is my second go at this because I got confused about which went where, so try to keep organized. But this will be our reference sheet. I'm going to start out by putting a solid wash of some paint at the bottom of each section and let that dry while we're working on this, because I would like to see how these media respond, these pencils, each one, over dried color. All right, so just for basic reference, we're gonna use some kind of a reddish tones in each color, in each brand. We'll just do a little scribble and see, just baseline here. Right off the bat, this is more chalk-like, and these are a little waxier. These don't budge much. This does. So this is really nice for blending. So let's do that one more time and draw a little circle with each one. We're going to test how they react if we were to lay down color and then go back into it with water and get it wet. Let's see what happens with just some clear water. So the Posca, not much happening here. It won't be great for blending with the watercolor media. Now the Staedtlers, these are the actual watercolor pencils, and look at that color. Look at that. It's really activating with the water. But these also blend, not as fully, but you can get some movement and a little bit of activation with those. So kind of an in-between of these two. Let's play next with just laying a wash of water down and then drawing onto it and see what happens. So this is interesting. See the difference between the line here and the line here? This is much smoother. It's not as saturated, but it's a very smooth line. You're not picking up the texture of the paper underneath. Let's go on to the Staedtler. Water on here. Okay, so it's definitely a more saturated line than on the plain paper. And you can see a little bit of bleed out. What happens? Whoa, that one gets kind of like the Staedtler. This gets a little bit more saturated and heavy. So that's kind of neat. And now let's mix them with color. Well, we'll go with a light color since I have a dark one down here. So I'm going to lay the color down and pick up a complementary. See what we think of that. So that's wet on dry, and now onto the wet. So I'm less impressed with for mixing, but let's keep moving and seeing what we decide about these. Yeah, look at that blend. Wow. That's a great blender. All right, let's try the Stabilos. See what we think. Similar in terms of how they interact with the color, but they don't blend as much. Kind of neutralize the blue. I mean, complementary colors, I guess that's going to be how it'll work. So let's see. Well, the big test for me, because I often will do paint and then go back in when the painting reaches a certain stage and see how I can add in some final details or textures. So I want to see how these look if we try to lay them over a saturated color that's already dried. All right, so this is, the Poscas are by Uni. You can build up to a little bit of a solid coverage on the lighter areas and get it opaque if it's light, but down here, you're just getting that like waxy sheen. But you know what? What happens if we try to use a light color? Like I wanted to go in and make a highlight. Will that work at all? Not very well. Now our watercolor pencils. Probably better going back over dried colors like the other one. Let's see what happens if I use a very light color and try to go and create a highlight. It's a little bit better than the Poscas. Now the Stabilos. These have kind of been my go-to for doing this kind of work, but I really wanted to test it all out and see what we had. Yeah, I mean, look at that. That's purely opaque color going out down there. Beautiful. Let me try again a light color with these. That's amazing. So this is great. I would happily add patterns, shapes, colors. These could work over certain colors, I think, and certain combinations in terms of what I really care about. How does it go over the colors? This is fantastic. Now, I'm going to tell you what I don't like about these. I love to use them, but they get incredibly brittle. I don't know if you can see how much this has broken to the point I keep trying to sharpen it, but it'll just keep breaking. So I've got this little nub, and there's a few colors I have like this where they just, you try to sharpen it to be able to use it and it just becomes brittle and breaks apart. Now, they're not new. I've had these for quite some time, so age may be playing into that. But this gives you a good reference. Okay, next we're going to actually put this to the test. I'm going to walk through a painting, a little watercolor painting, and see how we can utilize this. And I'm going to start out with laying down just watercolor washes and then start building into the pencils as I go. So here we go. This particular piece is actually one of the monthly art challenge for October. I'm taking part in the Drawloween challenge by Mab Graves. And today's challenge for when I make this piece is Lagoon. So besides experimenting with the watercolor pencils, I'm also a little bit experimenting with the natural movement of watercolor, like how to experiment with it as a medium, if you just let it go do its thing versus more controlled usage. Until you become a master, never miss an opportunity to experiment. Okay, I'm going to start laying in the pencils for a little ghost ship in the background. I'm going to begin by laying out what I know won't move when I paint over it, kind of giving the outlines and some details with the Poscas, and now I'm going in with a watercolor pencil because then I can smudge those lines for the sails that are kind of moving in the wind. There we go. And now filling in with the water on the base. It's a good start. All right, back to the pencils again. I add a little bit more to my ship, build it up a little bit. Using a combination of colors that I know will bleed and those that I know will not. And now I'm going to add in some highlights after I'm basically done painting. Highlights and detail. And these are my purely opaque colors. So if you take nothing else from this video, just go out there and play and experiment and try things that are new to you with new media, or just putting two things together that you never put together before, and see what happens, and just, you know, have fun. So if you guys like this, please share, like, subscribe, leave me a comment, and I'd love to see the work that you're doing right now. So throw me a link, hit me up. Absolutely, please do. In the meantime, guys, stay sane, take care of yourselves, make things, and I will see you next time.